Welcome to Kisima Radio, your heart-to-heart communications. You are with your host, Lisa Yalivani, and Pastor Lutando Tofu, our guest for today. On our last podcast, we touched on adaptability and how, as a leader, you are to see beyond limitation, you are to see beyond any capacity that abantu ababona ngayo, and you are able to have a belief system that the people that are following you are able to adapt to that and baphile the vision that you have as a leader. Today we are also talking about enabling leadership. How does these two tie up as a strong leader, to build a strong leader?
Yeah, I believe we spoke and laid quite a good foundation on our last episode, tying off the aspect of visionary leadership. And I think what's most important is also that a visionary leader is somebody who's able to see beyond what is obvious, because a lot of people react to what they see. They react to what society is doing. They react to what is emerging, but they lack the ability to see beyond the obvious. And so it's important for a visionary leader to see, because then when you see beyond the obvious, you start to kind of expand the vision itself, or the scope of the work that needs to be done. And when that scope expands, you begin to see that you can't accomplish it alone. That's why it becomes important then for you as a visionary leader to actually determine what it is that I believe, what is my belief system, what is my ideology, what is that thing that carries the heart of this vision, and transfer that to other people, because then in doing so, you are actually setting yourself up to the next generation, so that even when you are no longer there, other people can continue building your vision. Because you've transferred what you believe, the heart of it, the core of it. And so most people don't go beyond what they see. Visionary leaders see beyond the obvious. And so when we're now talking about enabling leadership, we're talking about the next step, as in when now you see this breadth of what needs to be done, what then? Then it becomes important for you to kind of pull in a team of people. Wow. But what you do with that team is also critical, and that's what we're going to be touching on today.
Pulling in a team of people and having those people to see and touch and experience and work with your vision and pull it forward. How do you unlock the potential within them? How do you stimulate them to be the visionary leader and carry the vision forward?
So when we're talking about it also in the context of kingdom leadership, most people would think that we're talking at the level of the local church. No, that's not what when we're talking about the expansion of the optical capacity or the vision, now you're starting to talk about something that brings together people from different contexts, from different corners, from different churches. You no longer become a local church-minded person. Not that the local church is not important. You may function in that space, but the breadth of the work that you do becomes a breadth of how do we bring the church in this city or in this country together, because now you're seeing beyond the obvious and starting to see what is possible. And so what you then communicate to people coming into your team is no longer something that has to do with what I do in my little corner, but what we can do together. And so the bulk of your work then becomes the glue that brings people together. And I think that's where also Jesus wanted us to function on. He didn't want us to function in silos where you build your church in that corner, I build my church there, you build yours there, and then we compete. But he built it in such a way, he was teaching, in fact, his disciples in such a way that they pull everybody together. And the question was never to ask whether you are saved or not saved, but it was to say, you are God's creation, so you can partake in God's plan and vision. So when we go back to Genesis, we said there was no church in the Garden of Eden, there was humanity.
Come on.
So how do we pull together humanity? So the task becomes, how do we pull people who don't even know God into the vision of God?
Wow.
and they partake and participate in extending the kingdom of God, even if they don't know that they are.
Yes.
That becomes the breadth of the vision.
Powerful, Mfundisi. Even in your book, Inspired to Lead, you mentioned that we are to pull the community into that vision and walk forth, and do what is needed to do. Can you also specify, Mfundisi, how do you do that? Because as leaders, we would say, the two don't mix. But how do you influence and be a significant leader in this time and era? So
one of the things that we as leaders today have traded is that we have traded being important for being significant. And there's a difference there. Most of us, we pursue being important, but we are not pursuing being significant. Being significant means that when you move out or when you leave, all of us feel it. It's not that you can be important, but that does not affect our livelihood. That does not affect what we do. But when you're significant, it's like saying this finger does not really matter, but until you remove it, then you see why it's there. So that's significance. It may be quiet, it may not be known, it may not. There are parts in my body that might not be known. But once they are removed, gone, then you can feel that something has been removed. So we need to move from a place of seeking to be important, even in the work of God, seeking to be important, but seeking to be significant, because then that changes the tone of our approach to the work, and that changes our character towards the work, and that changes a whole sorts of things, such that the work becomes the most important thing rather than the worker. God glorifies the worker, but the worker glorifies God through the work. So we need to bring those things back into balance, because why we as the church even are so divided is because we have elevated ourselves beyond the work. But we are brought into this vision, God's vision for humanity, because of the work that needs to be done. So we need to return to appreciating the work that needs to be done. So now let's take for an example Jesus. Jesus draws these guys together, 12 guys specifically. He pulls them in because he realizes that what he needed to do, the long-term perspective that he had, was that it's going to last generations. And he's not going to be there.
Oh, come on.
He only had 3 years. So what's his first tactic? It is to pull 12 guys in. And those 12 guys in, he empties himself in them, so that they become, or they gain the belief system he had, they gain the methodology he has, so that they can then continue to do the work even in his absence. So 2,000 years later, we're still doing the same thing that Jesus taught those guys to do, who taught other guys to do, and so forth. So his vision went from generation to generation.
Yes.
For this, I sorry guys, I have to come in on this one. Recently, I was taken by this very story of uYesu uhamba ubona abantu beloba inhlanzi. And one funny thing about last scenario is zangabuze okanye zanga focus on wena wenza ntoni into ongayenziyo okanye into ongekho perfect kuye, but what he focused on was what he wanted to enable through them. So because he already knew ukuthi le nto ndifuna uyenza through ababantu, not for me ndinguYesu, but for my Father. He then focused on the reason why he needed to enable. Now Mfundisi, would you say in the current structures, whether it be church, whether it be government, would you say there is a lack of being an enabler that doesn't focus on what am I to gain from enabling this person? And how can we remedy that now as per the kingdom leadership?
Oh yeah, and I mean it's one of the diseases in our leadership mentality. And the church is is no exception.
Yeah.
We have the same problem, even within the church, because if you see how Jesus does it and how he enables people to do what he did. Nowadays, if I'm the lead pastor, I want to be the one who holds the power. There are things that I must be able to do that nobody else can, so that I feel needed.
See that I am enabling this thing to happen.
Exactly. But Jesus does it the opposite. He brings these guys and enables them. And quite in fact, one of the verses I wanted to read was John chapter 14 verse 12.
Okay.
And he says, you guys are going to do what I have been doing and even more. How many leaders can say that? That I am teaching you to do exactly what I can do, and to do even more than what I have been able to accomplish.
Yes.
That's a kingdom leader. So his focus was not, because part of the problem we have is even to be swallowed by your own vision is a problem. Because then when I'm swallowed by my vision, everybody who comes along have to be dictated to by me. What we do in kingdom leadership is to enable people to find their place within the vision. Some churches won't even allow you to, they will tell you can't do a vision within a vision. But is that vision big enough? Because if it were big enough, then it would enable other people to envision within the vision.
Which is Mvundisi. Andiyihleki Lisa, into lo engayihleki is kufika la nto ithi nyani if siyajonga indlela abantu abaphatha ngayo even kwi-structures, umuntu ophetheyo nobe engenakuxelela point blank bamamela ndiza ku-enablisha uyenze le nto, but I'm doing in such a way that ungabikho ngaphezu kwam.
Yes.
Be able to do it.
Yeah.
But sundogqitha. I'm always going to remind you bamamela kaloku I'm your enabler. Of which
it becomes about power now, not about the vision.
And recognition for ulanduka self, of which then kingdom leadership talks to enable for the greater purpose. Not even for you as the enabler, but for he who created us.
Can I come in there? Because
Yes.
it's so sad. If Udada Mfundisi or the church leader had a wife and then he passes on and then the wife is left with the church, most of the times the church is split apart. Okanye but abanye won't be led by women. Others would say Udada is no longer there, which was the important one, and therefore we cannot be here. How Mfundisi, we were talking here about enabling. How do we enable the ones that are left behind when you are not there to lead the church as much as you have shared the vision, especially when it comes to women, after they've been left by their husband and now they have to take care of the church at large.
And I think that's the whole point, because if your vision is limited to you, then it's not big enough.
Okay.
So,
Like
so your vision, if it's a God vision, must be big enough such that it contains other shoots. See a tree, when a tree is planted and grows and it falls seeds, it must enable those seeds to grow and find their own feet, even if they are around it. And so when we're talking about kingdom leadership, we're talking about that's why I always say it's never my vision anyway.
Oh, yes.
Because if God gives you a vision and gives him a vision and gives that one a vision, so God must be confused. Because the Bible tells us God has a vision already. And his vision has nothing necessarily to do with building a big church. It has to do with humanity and restoring humanity. So whenever what I presume to be a vision does not play into the bigger vision of God, then it's not a God vision. It's my vision. And so we need to distinguish also between those two. Whether it's mine, because if it's my vision, then it's going to be centered around me.
Yes.
And I'm most likely to die with it. And other people not finding room within it.
And
so we need to trade our visions for God's vision. Even with churches, if your vision has nothing to do with bringing humanity back to God's original intent,
Change it.
then change it. And the wonderful thing about being an enabling leader is that as people grow under you and you continue to enable them to find themselves within this space, it moves and pushes you to expand your territory. Because now you have to accommodate. If people under me, let's say for example there's one who wants to start a kids ministry, another wants to start a church, and they're wanting to do it initially because people don't just move out of churches, they move because of pressure to move out. So if I create the environment and space for them to do that, enabling them, then they won't have a pressure to leave. But then I must expand my capacity, my territory, to be able to accommodate their living, their vision, and what is coming out of them. In that way, no father who raises up a child is never glorified for the successes of a child. Unless you disown your child, then you don't get the glory for raising the child.
Wow.
But when you raise a child well and you enable the child and you give them room to be who they are, even if they exceed you, people will always ask who's your mother or who's your father.
Come on, because you'll be the replica of your parents. And Nati, as the followers and as children, let us be obedient. Singabaniki had time abefundisi and our leaders at large, because when you do that, you are doomed for failure. There's something that I read. Fundisi, we shouldn't be church hopping, moving churches because of the what is the music. You don't like this, you don't like that. But the only time you should be church hopping or thinking that you should move into another sector, it's when is really got it's not the real thing. It's what is being preached. It's not in the word of God.
Yeah.
But ngaphandle kwalonto, let us stay ezinyaweni, let us stay in the vision, let us be obedient, let us read to lead, inspire to lead, and read a lot. Fundisi, where can we get copies just to close off?
Yes, people can contact me. I have copies, 120 per copy.
Wonderful.
They are available.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for tuning in on Kisima Radio, your heart-to-heart communication. A blessed day further.
Super.